Alright guys, a couple of people have been asking me the same question today, so I decided to just make a video to address this for everyone, because I guess a lot of people will probably be in the similar shoes. And that question is, how many times should you actually be summoning on this banner? Because you may have gotten extremely lucky and managed to get hit pity very early and got all the character you want. Should you still be keep on summoning it for the extra rewards? And I'll talk not just for the select SSR banner, but I'll also talk about this for the UR banner as well, just to give it advice for all kind of players out there, whether free to play or pay to win. How many times should you actually be summoning on this as well? Okay. Now let's start off with the select recruit. So first of all, this one have a wish list functionality, which you can pick 1 out of 3, and you are guaranteed to get 1 SSR out of 80 summons. And also there's a 50-50 system built in, which basically means everyone's able to guarantee 1 copy of any character of their choice in 160 summons, which by the way, it should be Nishinoya. In case you're wondering why, I explained that in my rebuild guide, so do check that out. But yeah, everyone should be able to pick Nishinoya as their wishlist character, and you should be getting that within 160 summons guaranteed. Now, the problem is then kind of you also get some extra rewards, obviously, all the way up to summoning for 200 times. And a lot of people are thinking, should I keep on summoning for this? And I can tell you the short answer is yes, you should 100% be summoning. And the answer is actually quite simple. First of all, from a risk point of view, the pity get transferred over. So it's not like you're wasting anything, even if you don't get any. If you're not getting them, that just basically means your next select recruit banner, you'll be getting it very, very early. It literally says here, the all guarantee counter accumulating in select recruit can be effective in any select recruit in the future. Okay, so obviously the wish list can change, but for any kind of select recruit banner, you are always able to transfer that pity. So you're definitely not losing anything by summoning early. You may not get the right character, but you're definitely not losing anything. However, on the plus side, let's take a look at the actual reward you get at 200 summons. Now, this is used for skill level to raise the skill level for SSR character or lower. And in case you guys don't know, that's essentially what dupe is able to do in this game. So if you get a dupe of a character, you will be essentially using that dupe to raise their skill level. So this, you can just think of it as a universal dupe from other gacha games, etc. So a universal dupe, and we know the pity for SSR is basically 80 in order to guarantee a character. So the fact that you're getting this healthy milk at 200 summon essentially means it's going to be 80 summons back, because otherwise it can probably take you up to 80 summons in order to guarantee that dupe for a different banner. So that's kind of what this is, already worth 80 summons by itself. And then that if you take a look at this, the reward at 120 summons, you literally get 10 recruit ticket back as well. So that basically means that if you are anywhere which is higher than 110 summons in, what you should just be doing is you summon 10 times to get 10 summons back out this reward at 120. Then you summon another 80 times, you get another 80 back from this healthy milk. And that's it. And during that time, if you're lucky, you could have got another SSR early. If you're not lucky, you still can get some extra reward of random 4-star end player as well. So there's literally no reason of why you do not want to go all the way to 200, to be honest. Okay, now let's move on to the UR banner and talk about how many times should be summoning on this. Now, I'll be doing this from both the perspective of free-to-play player and also a pay-to-win player, so everyone knows what is the best strategy from their perspective. Now, for the free-to-play players, the number one question you need to be asking yourself is how many summons can you actually get? I have actually tested this on the trial server ahead of global launch, and I grinded pretty much everything and also only converted my diamonds to ultra tickets, so I didn't spend it on anything else. And I was able to get to about 110 summons by day 10. Now, this was a trial server. They did give us some extra benefit, but I purposely didn't use those benefits till the last day because I was testing how many times I can actually summon without any of those extra benefit. And that 110 is guaranteed pretty much for any free-to-play if you grind and you actually convert all of your diamonds into just ultra tickets, okay? Now, on the global server, we actually have a few extra benefits because we have the pre-registration reward, which wasn't on the test server, and also there's the maintenance reward, etc., which also wasn't on the test server. So I actually do feel like potentially we can even get guaranteed 120 summons if you're really hardcore and convert all of your diamonds into it. don't take my word on that, because obviously half of the testing was on the trial server, and I don't know whether they potentially change some of the progression on behind the scenes, etc. So take this with a grain of salt, but I do feel a vast majority of times you should be able to get to 120 if you're being hardcore enough and grind everything. Now, what I actually recommend for the free-to-play players, however, is that you should be stopping at 50 summons potentially, just to see, have an idea of whether you can definitely get an extra 70 to hit that 120 mark before then committing to it. And the reason why I say 120 is a quite good milestone for you to get is, first of all, the pity for this banner is 140, by the way, in case you're wondering, right? Pity is 140, so 120 summon is actually pretty nice in the sense that it gives you a pretty high chance of actually getting this character. And then the other thing is obviously any thing that all of your pity would be carried over, right? If you actually just read the description, the UR counter, guarantee counter, which is a pity, are effective in any UR feature player pool. And after this one closed, the accumulated one will not be cleared and will be carried over. So it's very clear, anything you spend here is not going to be wasted. So you can always carry that over. But the extra incentive of going from 50 all the way to 120 is actually this SSR player selection pack, which for everyone at early game, that's actually going to be very important, because a lot of time the difference between SSR and the SR units, just in terms of raw stats, is actually quite significant. And especially if you're free to play, when you don't actually have SSR for every single position, this extra player selection pack is actually going to be very, very important, which is why I'm going to highly recommend everyone to try to aim for this 120. Now, obviously, like I said, if you want to play it safe, there's nothing wrong with just stopping at 50 to make sure you can go all the way from 50 to 120 before making that jump. That's probably the safe move to make, to be honest. But I do recommend, if possible, try to go all the way to 120 just for the sake of this player selection pack. If you get the UR character Ushijima early, that's great. If you don't, you haven't wasted anything. You will just get the next UR character super early because you're already 120 PT in, okay? So that's going to be the free-to-play perspective. Now, for the pay-to-win, how many summons should we do? Well, number one question is that, because you can only get to about 120 summons for free, how much money do you actually want to spend in this game, right? That's going to be the number one question. Obviously, if we don't talk about money perspective, doing an extra 80 summon to get one free UR unit, which normally can cost up to 140 pity, is a no-brainer. So I would recommend you guys do that if money is not an issue. But obviously, take a look at your own wallet and see whether that's a good deal for your own circumstance or not, right? The other thing I also want to point out for the pay-to-win players is that the sweet spot is not actually 200 summons. If you just take a look at this reward, cumulative recruit reward, and think 200 is the most you can get, that's actually wrong. The sweet spot is actually going to be at 220 summons, because if you actually go into 220 summons, what happens is, if you actually go to event itself, there's a spin and win where you actually get some reward, extra reward at 220 summons in. And this is essentially the equivalent of basically, if you get 20 of them, it's essentially the same as a universal UR do. Now, obviously, at 220 summons, you only get 5 of them, so this is only going to be a quarter of a universal UR dip. However, if you consider a universal, if you consider UR pity, it's about 140, or maybe at best 120 summons. A quarter of that is still worth 30 summons. So it's definitely not a bad idea to go from 200 summon to 220 summon just to get that extra quarter of a universal do, because you are spending 20 summons, however you are effectively then getting 30 summons back. So that's kind of why it's also a good idea to actually do that extra 20 summons. But once again, that's going to cost you real life money. Is it worth it? Take a look at your own wallet and make that decision yourself.